We all want to stand out, don't we? We want to be seen, to be heard, to be remembered. Whether it's in a boardroom, a classroom, a crowded party, or a quiet coffee shop, there's a part of us that's hungry for recognition. But ironically, most people go about it the wrong way. They try too hard, speak too loudly, dress too boldly, or act in ways that scream, "Look at me." And in doing so, they become forgettable. Or worse, they alienate others. That's the paradox of visibility. The more desperately you chase it, the more it slips through your fingers. Now, imagine someone walks into a room. They say nothing at first, but people notice. There's an aura around them, an energy. They're calm, composed. Their presence is magnetic, not because they're loud, but because they know something you don't. You want to know more. You want to be near them. You want to understand them. That's what Robert Greene is getting at with Law 17, keep others in suspended terror, cultivate an air of unpredictability. Power is psychological. At its core, it's not just about control or domination. It's about perception. How people see you often determines how they treat you. If you're predictable, if every move you make can be anticipated, then you're not feared, you're managed. But when you introduce unpredictability into your behavior, people become uncertain. And uncertainty breeds power. Let me take you back in time. Think about the great military generals of history, Napoleon, Hannibal, Patton. What made them so effective wasn't just brute strength. It was their ability to strike where no one expected. To move like mist through mountains and deserts. To keep the enemy on edge, second-guessing, never quite sure where the next blow would come from. Their unpredictability was their greatest weapon. Because when your opponent can't predict you, they can't prepare for you. But this idea extends beyond war. It applies to everyday power dynamics, in business, in relationships, in friendships, even within families. The person who's too consistent, who's always available, who always responds the same way, you can rely on them, yes, but you also take them for granted. You stop respecting their presence, their decisions, even their feelings. That's not power. That's predictability. And predictability is the enemy of influence. So how do we cultivate unpredictability? How do we wield it without becoming erratic or unstable? Because let's be clear, this law is not about being reckless. It's not about acting on impulse or burning bridges just to get a reaction. That's not unpredictability, that's chaos. True unpredictability is strategic. It's purposeful. It's the calculated deviation from the expected. Let's take an example from nature. Think about the snake. When a snake coils up, you don't know what it's going to do. It might strike. It might slither away. It might stay perfectly still. But that uncertainty, it makes you cautious. It makes you hesitate. That's the effect unpredictability has on people. When they don't know what you'll do next, they watch you more closely. They treat you more carefully. You occupy more space in their minds. One of the classic historical examples Greene uses is Richard Nixon. Now, love him or hate him, Nixon understood the psychological weapon that is unpredictability. During the Cold War, he deliberately cultivated what was called the madman theory. He wanted Soviet leaders to believe that he was just unhinged enough to push the nuclear button if provoked. That belief, that seed of doubt, made his enemies more cautious, more restrained. It gave Nixon leverage, not through action, but through perception. Now bring this back to your own life. Think about your workplace. If your boss or your colleague always knows how you'll react, if you're the guy who always says yes, or the woman who never raises a fuss, then your power is limited. But if once in a while, you say no when they expect a yes, or you react calmly when they expect anger, or you go silent when they expect confrontation, that shift, that break from routine, gives you control. Suddenly, they have to reevaluate you. They pay closer attention. You're no longer part of the background, you're a variable in their equation. There's something thrilling about unpredictability, too. It keeps interactions alive. Look at any great actor or performer, they don't just say lines. They surprise you. A pause here, a sudden movement there. That's what captivates us. That unpredictability holds our attention. You can bring that same energy to your own presence. Be the person who doesn't always respond right away. Who doesn't always say what's expected. Who can't be easily read. That mystery, if handled wisely, can become magnetism. Now, let's not confuse unpredictability with inconsistency in character. You can be deeply ethical, loyal, and grounded, and still be unpredictable in how you handle situations. Your values don't need to change, but your tactics can. For instance, if you're negotiating a deal, don't always make concessions the same way. Keep the other party guessing. Maybe you throw in a bonus out of the blue. Or maybe you walk away unexpectedly, then return with a different offer. That's unpredictability at work. It shifts the power dynamics in your favor. Relationships? Oh, unpredictability is essential there too. Especially in the early stages of romance or friendship. If you're too eager, too available, too transparent, the mystery dies quickly. People stop chasing. But when you're occasionally elusive, when you mix warmth with a touch of cool detachment, you become intriguing. That dance of energy draws people in. It's not about playing games. It's about protecting your power. And here's another layer to this law. Unpredictability forces people to focus on you. They have to pay attention to your moves, your words, your moods. And attention is currency. The more of it you command, the more influence you have. Think about artists, politicians, thought leaders. They rise not because they're always better or smarter, but because they're hard to ignore. They say something unexpected. They take a surprising stance. They zig when others zag. And suddenly, the spotlight is on them. Even in failure, unpredictability can work in your favor. If you lose, but lose in an unexpected way, if you react with grace when people expect fury, or with laughter when they expect defeat, you change the narrative. You control how others interpret your loss. That's power. Because again, it's not about what happens to you. It's about how people perceive what happens to you. But here's a warning: unpredictability, if overused, becomes predictable. You can't throw curveballs every day. If you're always trying to surprise people, they'll start to expect surprises. And the effect wears off. So the key is in the rhythm. Be mostly stable, build a strong foundation of trust and dependability. Then, when the moment calls for it, break pattern. Shift gear. Be the storm in the calm. Or the calm in the storm. That contrast, that's where the magic is. It's like a piece of music. If every note is loud and fast, the song becomes noise. But if it's mostly steady, and then suddenly a drum hits harder or a melody soars unexpectedly, that moment stays with you. That's what unpredictability does. It creates moments that linger. You also have to consider timing. Not every moment is ripe for unpredictability. Sometimes, stability is what people need. A leader in a crisis must be a rock. But once the storm has passed, and routine sets in, then it's time to shake things up. Then, a sudden change in tone, direction, or policy can jolt people back into awareness. It's about reading the room, knowing your environment, and striking when your unpredictability will have the greatest impact. And remember this: unpredictability doesn't always have to be dramatic. It can be subtle. A change in how you dress. A sudden silence in the middle of a heated conversation. A calm response to a cruel insult. These small breaks from expectation can be more powerful than any outburst. So ask yourself, where in your life have you become too predictable? Where have you settled into patterns that others can easily anticipate? It might be in how you communicate. in how you work, in how you love. And then ask, what small shift, what unexpected action, could reawaken their attention? What move could remind people that you are not to be taken for granted? There's also a kind of personal freedom that comes with unpredictability. When you're not bound by others' expectations, when you're not trapped in their mental box of who you're supposed to be, you can reinvent yourself. Surprise yourself. Do things you never thought you could. That's the gift of this law, not just in how others see you, but in how you see yourself. You become more fluid, more alive, more dangerous, in the best way. Of course, there will be resistance. People like predictability. It makes them feel safe. It gives them a sense of control. So when you deviate from the script, when you become the wild card in the deck, some will resent you. Some will fear you. Let them. That fear keeps them respectful. That resentment means they're watching. Either way, you've occupied their minds, and that, again, is power. In the end, Law 17 isn't about manipulation. It's about self-mastery. It's about using the element of surprise as a tool, a mirror, a force. It's about knowing that the unexpected has weight, and using that weight to tip the scales in your favor. It's about making people think twice before they speak, act, or decide, because they don't know what you'll do next. So walk into rooms with a little mystery. Speak with intent, but leave space for imagination. Move with purpose, but change your rhythm now and then. Be steady, be true, but never be fully known. Let there be a corner of your mind that's yours alone. Let there be a layer to you that no one can quite figure out. Because in that mystery, in that unpredictability, lies your power. Use it wisely. Use it strategically. And watch as the world leans in, wondering what you'll do next.